Well, I was actually first introduced to the TAVR procedure shortly after my 6-year heart transplant anniversary heart cath follow-up appointment. I was there in the cath lab. I knew that whatever was going on in the lab that day wasn't great. I knew the doctors had been having a discussion already about my aortic valve and something being wrong with it. So I really just confronted my doctors toward the end of the cath, and I said, what's going on? The answer that he gave me, Dr. Talaj, at that point was, he said, you're suffering from severe aortic valve stenosis, which basically means a hardening or calcification of the valve, which causes it not to be able to function properly. Now, at that point, as soon as he told me that, I knew what was about to happen. I've been dealing with this for about 6 years. We've kind of been watching it, monitoring it, but according to him, things had gotten a lot worse in that last year since my previous caths and such. So things were a lot worse, and he knew that. So I immediately started reeling in my mind thinking, I don't want to go through another open heart procedure. I don't know that I'm up to that. I began to question myself and think, am I really that symptomatic? Is this really going to be worth it? Am I going to expect a better quality of life? Can I wait a while? All this is reeling through my mind. And all Dr. Talaj would really tell me at that point was just, let's take you out to recovery. I'll be out there in just a few minutes to talk to you. I need to go talk with some other doctors. Well, he comes out there to the recovery area where I was, and he said, Jim, we really, really, really don't want to open you up at this point. And so what I'm going to be looking into is a potential for getting you a newer procedure known as the TAVR, or Transcatheter Aortic Valve Replacement procedure. Now, I didn't know what that was either, but he went on to explain to me that it would be a much easier effort as far as recovery, as far as, just overall just getting the valve replacement done, but he did not know if I was going to be a candidate for such. So he told me that he would think about it. He would talk it over with some other doctors. He told me, I know, Jim, you're going to do your research, so go ahead and do that. And we'll kind of regroup on this here in a while. So, that's basically what I did. And that's the first thing I had ever heard about TAVR. Before that, I didn't even know what the term meant. I'd never heard those letters put together. So, yeah, that's probably my first introduction to such. Well, after Dr. Talaj came back, and he'd already spoken with the TAVR doctors and what they thought what the potential was, he really started to help me understand that this procedure could be a much better option for me personally. Now, case-by-case basis, yes, everyone's a little bit different, but even though typically the TAVR procedure is kind of reserved for those people who are 65 or older, those people who they don't feel like can undergo an open heart procedure, which I didn't want to go through one, but typically they can't. They're not going to survive the procedure. They're not going to be able to recover from it, right, or something like that. Me being at the time 44 years old, I was much younger than what they had typically done the procedure on. And so, he offered it to me as an option, but he had to warn me, he told me the best way to fix your problem is to crack your chest, to open up your sternum, to go in, to physically replace that valve, with a tissue valve or something of that sort, or maybe a mechanical valve. But he told me that even though that was the best way to do it, because of the other issues I was going through, it may not be the best way, okay? And that really comes down to the fact that I had open heart surgery at 6 months old, and had the heart transplant at 38 years old, 6 years prior to this point. And, he said, we just can't afford to break that sternum again. He said, there's a high probability, a likelihood that one day I may have to have another heart transplant. And they wanted to really save that sternum being broken for that point. They didn't want so much scar tissue to be piled up in my body. They just didn't want to have to put me through a valve replacement and then eventually maybe another transplant. It just might be too much. So he told me then, he was trying to be honest, and he told me then, he said, the downfall of this is if we are able to do the TAVR procedure, and he didn't know whether we were at that point or not, but he said if we're able to do it, we don't have a lot of data. We don't have a lot of numbers to prove the longevity and the survivability of this procedure. He said, I'm sure you'll do fine in the procedure, but right now, being that this, basically came out in 2012, basically at my center didn't start till 2014, there's just not enough evidence to prove how long these valves will last. He told me at that point, he said, I'm really thinking about 8 years. And so when I heard that, I thought, that's not good enough. I don't want to, get this done and in 8 years have to have another open heart procedure either. I just didn't want to deal with that. But, as he talked to me a little bit more about it, he began to talk to me about how, this could be a better option. He referred me over to Dr. Davies, which eventually I went to see Dr. Davies in a week or so. And Dr. Davies made me feel much more comfortable about it because he told me, he said, again, being a transplant patient, having been opened up twice, we don't want to open you up again. And this procedure can be done in the cath lab through the groin. Basically, just push the valve in with it, it's kind of squeezed up and deploy it. It opens up. If it lands in the right spot, it functions correctly, you're good to go. And he said, versus the open heart procedure, which could take 2 to 3 months of recovery, this could take about 2 to 3 days, with a maximum of 2 weeks to full recovery. So definitely a better sounding option. Again, he reminded me that they don't have the evidence to prove how long this would last. But the bright side to that is, as we discussed there while I was sitting there, he said, Jim, 6 years ago, we didn't even have this procedure to do. 6 years ago, your valve replacement would have had to be done open heart. So he wanted me to just imagine that there's a great potential that even though this was the best procedure now, as far as quick, easy options, there may be a better one later. And he even told me that in 7, 8 years, if this valve begins to fail, it's a great possibility that even as things stand now, we might be able to put a valve inside of a valve and therefore do the replacement again through this TAVR, transcatheter method. So, that kind of really helped assure me up that he knew what he was talking about. He was going to take care of me, and he was going to make it possible so that I could keep going, with the option that if technology has increases or does increase like it has over the past 6 years, that there could be a much better option available even then, if ever. And so, that's really where I began to gain some confidence in the procedure and where I really began to think, okay, this is something we need to do. So I went in for the procedure, got there that morning early, did what I had to do. They took me back. Procedure did not last but a matter of minutes. I don't know, maybe 30, 45 minutes total. That included putting me to sleep and waking me back up. I actually got to watch the deployment of the valve a little bit later on some videos they took. The doctor came out, Dr. Davies came out and told me I did very well. He suggested that I might have been, we don't know this for sure yet, but I might have been one of the youngest patients to have that done at 44. He also suggested I definitely might be the first and youngest heart transplant patient to undergo the TAVR procedure. So kind of record-breaking setting or something like that, I don't know. But yeah, that was exciting to be a part of that. It was good to hear, how well I had done. Within 48 hours, I was out of the hospital at the house, and within a matter of a few days, after I got comfortable with that, back up walking, within a matter of, like they said, 2 weeks, I felt 100%. I really did. Transplant that I had, my transplant, I always have to remind myself and others, transplant is a treatment, not a cure. So I do have good days, bad days, up days, down days, and I always will. But as far as the valve replacement, the symptoms I was having before, shortness of breath, lightheadedness, dizziness, fatigue, those symptoms are just gone. I mean, almost immediately I could feel a difference. And as I got back into shape a little bit, definitely could feel a difference. And so I'm excited. I think it really has done me very well. Follow-up treatment is not even very difficult. I'm put on Plavix, which is kind of a blood thinner type anticoagulant drug or something like that. My daily aspirin, that's the only medications I take now. And follow up with the doctor, I followed up at 1 month, I'll follow up again at a year. So yeah, as long as I don't have any problems, there's no real new medication regimen, nothing difficult about this. I would say overall, it's really just been easy. I mean, not perfect probably, but easy. And so I'm just thankful to have had TAVR offered to me as an opportunity. It has definitely already impacted my life. It has definitely already improved my quality of life. And it's definitely something that, I suggest that others do. As far as my advice for anyone who's in a similar situation, and I mean by that, maybe you're facing an aortic valve replacement, I would absolutely, want to go this route versus the open heart route. Even if this doesn't have the proven, data to prove this will last forever and a day. It may not, but it does have an easier recovery right now, a very positive result, at least for me and many I've talked to. And it certainly does give you another chance to wait things out for technology to improve. So I would say that if you're being faced with aortic valve replacement, and if the doctors aren't offering this as an option, I would ask about it. If they, for some reason, either say you're not a candidate or maybe say that, they don't offer that at your center, maybe your cardiologist, your team's not familiar with such, I would then just kindly and respectfully ask for a second opinion. It may be that you have to have an open heart procedure, maybe some situation that causes that to happen, but to begin with, I would ask them about it, and if they're not able to give me the answers I need, I would get a second opinion, because it just wouldn't be worth going through an open heart procedure for anyone if you've got an option like this. So I think overall TAVR is a great procedure. I'm so thankful that technology has gotten where it is. And if I had to do it again next week, I wouldn't be disappointed. I hope to wait longer than that, but really it's great. And so definitely my advice to everyone is to sit down, have a talk with your doctor, ask them about the procedure. And if they're not able to give you the answers that sound good, keep looking. Don't give up on this, because TAVR is a wonderful, wonderful thing.